Welcome back to the Nitro Corner right here on YouTube. Glad that you could join us. Right now we're going to do a new segment here. It's called Guest Booker. I do fantasy wrestling for Mashed Up Wrestling on ProBoards.com, and I thought I would bring a little bit of that element right here to the Nitro Corner. The date is April of 1985. We were just getting done with WrestleMania 1, massive success. The Rock and Wrestling connection is saved. But there's a new villain coming in the way that Hulk Hogan will never expect. Someone with enough arrogance, enough conceit, and will do anything, go down to the dirt to get what he wants. The man's name is gorgeous Gino Hernandez. I would introduce Gino with his new manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan, on Superstars right after WrestleMania. About 2 weeks after WrestleMania, we hit it high. Gino comes up there to the shock of everybody, after leaving World Class Championship Wrestling to join the World Wrestling Federation, and Gino made it crystal clear he does not want to mess with the underlings. He wants the top dog, and that is Hulk Hogan. So therefore, Bobby Heenan has made it crystal clear Gino would only wrestle Hulk Hogan for the championship and no one else. So what does Vince McMahon and all the bureaucracy do, besides putting me as Booker? If I was Booker at that time, I would say, okay, Gino would go up against Tito Santana, who was at that time the former... Tito Santana was the number one contender at that time for the Intercontinental title on TV. If whoever won the match would get a title shot, well, of course, I would put Gino over Tito Santana, and I would make Gino Hernandez the new number one contender for the world's heavyweight title. While Roddy Piper is feuding with his former partner, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, I would slip Gino right in to challenge Hogan for the title. After some initial meetings, one-on-one in places like Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Baltimore and Philadelphia, all the major markets, I would hit Madison Square Garden on May 20th, 1985 in Madison Square Garden. Original main event was Hulk Hogan versus the Magnificent Morocco. I would scratch that main event right out. Gino would be put in there, and thanks to a pair of brass knuckles, I would put Gino Hernandez, I would book him to beat Hulk Hogan in the Garden for the world's heavyweight title. It sent shockwaves throughout the WWE. And Gino, being Mr. Conceit, Mr. Arrogance, would go out and say that I am your champion. I got more sex appeal than Daryl Hannah can handle. And that Hulkamania is a joke, and I have killed the punchline of the joke, which is Hulk Hogan, because I'm your champion and don't you forget about it. Ultimate conceit. And then Hulk Hogan would say, Gino Hernandez, you cheated to beat the title. Hulkamania is going to run wild, with Gino countering, Hulkamania can run wild back and home while I take care of his old lady. And that would just, the hate would come from there. The heat would come for Gino Hernandez, would be just tremendous. And he would antagonize Hogan in rematches where Gino would somehow get Hogan to lose his cool and get himself disqualified. I would say successful title defense, I'd say up in Boston on June 22nd. I would have Hogan get disqualified for hitting the referee while he was punching Gino. And Hogan would realize, oh God, I got myself disqualified. And then the next weekend in Philadelphia, Hulk Hogan would fight Gino on the outside, only to Gino pull his tights. Hogan smacked that ring post hard. Gino would get in and get a count-out victory over Hulk Hogan. And then Gino would go on promos, on All-Star Wrestling, or on Championship Wrestling, or on Superstars, and say that I have whipped Hulk Hogan like the dog that he is, because I got more sex appeal than Demi Moore would do, ever putting out St. Elmo's Fire. and you can tell your old lady, to stop calling me on the phone if you smell what the Gino is cooking. Why not? Rock invented it. Why not put it in Gino Hernandez's promos? But then the tide would turn a little bit in Hogan's favor, because you would have to build your fan favorite to make a comeback. That's what works most successful as far as I'm concerned in booking angles. Have the underdog, the good guy, fight from underneath. I would have Hogan score disqualification victories in Landover and in Toronto thanks to Bobby the Brain and his interference in late July of '85. Which would lead me up to the next card at Madison Square Garden. On May 23rd, Hogan would get the disqualification victory over Gino Hernandez. But the week after that, I would have Hogan go on television and say, "Brother, I am sick and tired of running Gino Hernandez's raggedy butt around without getting the title, brother. I'll tell you what we'll do. Saturday night's main event, me and you, Gino, for the title. Loser, leave town, brother." Excuse me. That's right, a loser leave town match with Hogan and Gino. Loser would leave the WWE for good. Gino would accept it, saying, "I will kill Hulkamania because I got more sex appeal than Sally Field will ever be able to contain, and I'll be the man that killed Hulkamania." Well, come Saturday night's main event, on December 3rd of '85, I would book Hogan to regain the title and force Gino to lead the WWE. Thus, I would only keep Gino short term because I would have him go back to world class as a viable market, more of a viable contender for the NWA title now that he's had the WWE title. It had more prestige to world class championship wrestling. If I was booking it that way, that's how I would do it. And after Hogan would regain the title, then he would start a war with Roddy Piper based on Piper losing at WrestleMania and waiting all this time to get his revenge on Hulk Hogan. That's how I would book Hulk Hogan versus gorgeous Gino Hernandez in April of 1985 to October 3rd of '85. And I will have another guest booker segment next time here on the Nitro Corner. Now, time for our final segment. It's called This Month in Wrestling History. What I do is I will take the dates from a 2-week period in professional wrestling and tell you what happened in the world of professional wrestling. And I want to credit Mark James, a great author, great historian, for these facts. You could pick up his books at Amazon.com. I would highly recommend Memphis Wrestling History presents 1977, The War for Memphis. 1980, Memphis Wrestling History presents 1982. All the record books for Jim Crockett Promotions, Houston Wrestling, etc. These are the facts that came from these books, and I'm going to present it to you right now. And if you were a fan from August 1st to August 15th, you would have loved this. If you were a Georgia Championship Wrestling fan, on August 13th, 1971, at the Municipal Auditorium, Klondike Bill was the special guest referee as Bobo Brazil defeated Big Bad John. And then, zoom ahead 10 years later, if you were still a fan of Georgia Championship Wrestling, on August 9th, 1981, National Tag Team title match, Jimmy Snuka and Terry Gordy defeated Ted DiBiase and Michael P.S. Hayes. However, if you're a fan of Jim Crockett Promotions, like I am, and oh, by the way, I would highly recommend Mid-Atlantic Memories. You can get this at NWALegends.com. It is a great documentary. Trust me on that. Well, enough of the product endorsement there. On August 8, 1987, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Nikita Koloff scored a disqualification victory over Lex Luger. And then on August 3rd, 1984, in Richmond, Virginia, Ricky Steamboat and Jimmy Valiant scored a disqualification victory over Chief Wahoo McDaniel. That's right, he was a rule breaker back then in '84. And Tully Blanchard. Underrated angle, by the way, with Wahoo turning rule breaker. That was brilliant, and I like that. If you're a fan of Memphis, like I said, Mark James did a great job looking at Memphis history. You should pick up his books, by the way. Really good. On August 7, 1978, Southern Heavyweight title match at the Mid-South Coliseum. Jerry the King Lawler defeated Joe LeDuc. And on August 10, 1981, again at the Mid-South Coliseum, by the way, saved the Coliseum. There's a Facebook page called Coliseum Coalition. Support them, like the page, save the Mid-South Coliseum. Anyway, at the Mid-South Coliseum on August 10th, 1981 is a six-man back alley street brawl as Bill Dundee, Steve Keirn, and Plowboy Frazier defeated the Nightmares and Bugsy McGraw with Jimmy Hart. And if you were a fan of Florida Championship Wrestling, of course I am, August 30th, 1980, the last Tango in Tampa happened at Tampa Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The NWA World Heavyweight title match. 2 out of 3 falls. Dusty Rhodes won 1 fall to nothing as the second fall went to a draw against NWA World Heavyweight Champion Harley Race with Fritz Von Erich as special guest referee. And then in Tallahassee, Florida on August 4th, 1984 in a non-title match, Ric Flair defeated Dusty Rhodes by disqualification. And then if you are a fan of the Houston wrestling, it's always big in Texas, and especially in Houston, back around the early 80s, on August 14, 1982 at the Sam Houston Coliseum, the AWA title was on the line, no disqualification, no time limit, as Nick Bockwinkel defeated Dick Slater. And that was this month in wrestling history from August 1st to August 15th. And that time period. Glad that you could enjoy that along with myself. Well, that's it, fans, for this premiere edition of the Nitro Corner. We will be back on September 26th for an all-new edition of the Nitro Corner. Until then, I'm Paul the Nitro Skivers, saying so long, everybody, for the Nitro Corner, and I'll see you at the matches.